The high chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with light from 5 suns refracted through crystalline arches. Every major species in the galaxy had gathered. The amphor delegates floated in gravity chambers, the bronze-skinned Zelify vibrated with excitement, and the reptilian Drakkar clicked their jaws in anticipation. At the center of the circular chamber, bound in containment light, stood the last Terran ambassador, Admiral Isha Rourke. "You dare accuse us of conquest," she growled, her voice amplified, "when it was your council that dragged humanity into your war against the Varn?" Her voice echoed across the chamber. Councillor Enkar of the Zelify, with his translucent carapace and slitted violet eyes, lifted his multiple limbs and spoke. "The record is clear, Admiral. Humanity defied protocols, unleashed unregulated weapons, and destabilized half a quadrant. The war ended, yes, but at what cost?" Murmurs swept the chamber. Rourke stood tall in her navy blue uniform, streaked with ash and battle damage. "We ended a war you couldn't. You handed us fire and acted shocked when we burned the enemy to the roots." Councillor Trixa of the Vayari, a gas-based being suspended in a containment orb, rotated slowly. "And now we fear you may burn the rest of us. We find humanity too ungovernable." The chamber quieted as the chief arbiter, a towering, ancient being of light in neural silk robes, descended from the ceiling's pulpit. With no mouth, no eyes, only a mind that touched all others, it spoke into their thoughts. "The verdict is exile." Gasps filled the chamber. "Effective immediately, humanity is to be removed from all galactic affairs. All colonies will be disbanded. Earth will be quarantined. No ship shall cross its borders. You are to return to your origin and remain there." Admiral Rourke didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the crowd, not pleading, not angry. Just calculating. "Understood," she said calmly. "But let me say this, before you erase us from your council. History will remember who asked us to fight your war. And it will remember who exiled its only victors." She smiled. "And I hope you'll remember this too, we don't stay in cages long." The quarantine held. Earth disappeared behind a net of surveillance satellites, no-fly zones, and automated defense rings manned by council enforcers. All human colonies were dismantled or redistributed to other species. The Terran language was erased from official galactic records. A warning beacon orbited where Mars once held diplomatic treaties: unstable species, do not engage. Humanity, it seemed, had vanished. But that wasn't the truth. In the shadows of nebulae and black holes, in the ruins of ancient Varn fortresses, in derelict trade stations forgotten by the Council, humans thrived. A secret alliance, known only as the Soul Accord, had formed in the void. Admiral Rourke had returned to Earth to command its last fleets. Scientists once focused on diplomacy turned to warcraft. Engineers created jump drives untraceable by Council sensors. Every exile, every abandoned colony, was quietly recontacted and brought into the fold. Their motto: "We do not ask. We take." Human fleets moved silently, cloaked in radiation stealth mesh. They struck at slavers, freed captive species, dismantled warlords propped up by council politics. And everywhere they went, they left the same signature. One black Terran flag, painted on the ruins. "Have you heard of the Phantom Fleet?" The traitor whispered in a smoky backroom on Dravik Station, far from the Council's core worlds. The young Drakkar mercenary leaned in. "My cousins saw it. A ship made of obsidian. No sound, no signal. Just appeared. Then the slavers were gone. Vaporized." "Humans?" another gasping voice asked. "No such thing," a third said. "They're extinct. Or locked behind council walls." But the traitor just smiled. "Then who flies ships with Earth markings?" Rumors became sightings. Sightings became patterns. Patterns became fear. Council probes sent to dead zones never returned. Outlaw fleets hired to investigate vanished. Even the legendary bounty hunter Vetka the Collector disappeared after tracking a Terran ghost signal past the edge of the Orion Rifts. The Council denied everything. But in private chambers, meetings grew more frequent and more desperate. One by one, the great races of the galaxy felt pressure not from war, but from change. Formerly oppressed species were rising. Trade routes once dominated by council-affiliated corporations now operated independently, protected by unknown forces. Revolutions flared up, coordinated, swift, clean. It was as if someone had planned for it all. Finally, the moment arrived. In orbit over the neutral moon of Javern, a council emergency summit was held. As diplomats scrambled to contain growing unrest, the station's security grid failed. A single ship, sleek, black, and bristling with unfamiliar tech, emerged from hyperspace directly inside the station's defense perimeter. No hail. No weapon activation. Just a single message broadcast galaxy-wide. We warned you. The ship's hangar opened. From it stepped a woman in ceremonial battle armor. White hair. Burned shoulder badge. A deep scar across her cheek. Admiral Isha Rourke. The chamber exploded in panic. Dozens of delegates shouted for security. But none arrived. The station's AI had been overridden. Rourke spoke calmly into a live feed. You exiled us. We evolved. You silenced us. We unified. You feared we would burn the galaxy. Instead, we freed it. She stepped forward. The council is over. Effective now. Then she paused. Her smile returned. You'll find we've been quite busy. And we no longer need permission. The silence after Admiral Rourke's speech was the loudest moment in council history. Dozens of races sat paralyzed. The Ari containment orbs dimmed to deep blue, a sign of fear. Drocker guards gripped ceremonial weapons they hadn't used in centuries. The Zelethai delegates, usually in constant telepathic chatter, stared blankly at the human woman standing alone on their most secure diplomatic outpost. Chief Arbiter Luminar, ancient and blinding in presence, finally spoke, his voice a ripple across every mind. You are trespassing, Admiral. Rourke tilted her head. No, she replied. You are clinging to power you no longer possess. Then she raised her hand. Across the moon's orbit, dozens of stealth-shielded ships uncloaked simultaneously, each bearing different flags, not just Terran, but Volari rebels, Rimward freeborn, and even former slave factions long thought extinct. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had not come alone. The chamber's walls trembled as override codes disabled the summit station's internal defense systems. All security feeds, once restricted, now streamed live to every major holonet in the galaxy. Rourke turned slowly, addressing them all. For a century, you branded us warmongers. You feared our creativity, our speed, our refusal to obey blind tradition. So you exiled us. But in exile, we became something more. She gestured toward the screen above her. Footage played, human engineers working side by side with aquatic Neri mechanics, building planetary shields on flood-prone worlds. Human marines evacuating insectoid colonies from war zones the Council had abandoned. Children, human and alien alike, studying together in floating academies bearing the new sigil, the Accord Flame. We didn't build an empire, Rourke said. We built a future. Across the stars, the Shatterpoint. On the inner worlds of the Council core, chaos blossomed. Dozens of client species, long suppressed, launched synchronized revolts. Artificial intelligences once banned were reactivated. Merchant families who had hoarded energy, oxygen, and water now faced blockades by newly unified Accord patrols. The media tried to spin the events as terrorism. But it was too late. The truth, long buried, now lived in every transmission tower and data stream. A single name became a spark. The Soul Accord, the human-led alliance that operated without borders, without species hierarchy, and without permission. They didn't ask for seats in the Council. They built an alternative. One by one, member worlds of the Council began to defect. The battle for Heliast Prime. The tipping point came at Heliast Prime, the industrial heart of the galaxy. For centuries, the planet had supplied the Council with warships, repair drones, and propulsion crystals extracted by labor from over 20 conquered races. Now, it became a battlefield. The Council sent an elite defense fleet. The Soul Accord sent Captain Arlen Vega, former Terran Space Force, now commanding a multi-species battlegroup known as the Forge Wing. He didn't fire first. He opened with a message. Stand down. This world belongs to its people now. No more tribute. No more chains. No more council. The council commander, a staunch loyalist named Threx Olvan, refused. The Forge Wing disabled their fleet in 37 minutes. No fatalities. No overkill. Just precision strikes, electronic warfare, and drone legions that moved like smoke and light. When the dust settled, Arlen walked through the ruined halls of the Council's orbital dockyard and handed a broken ceremonial blade to the planetary governor. Tell them, he said, we've come home. In the Council's core. In the final chambers of the Council, panic took root. Councillor Enkar paced restlessly, antennae twitching with dread. How did we not see this coming? Councillor Trixa dimmed to a sickly purple. Because we never believed they'd work together. We thought exile broke them. The Chief Arbiter stood silent, its form flickering slightly, for the first time in memory, unsure. And then a voice pierced the quiet. Exile didn't break us, said Admiral Rourke, now standing before them again, this time, not as a rogue, but as the representative of the galaxy's new center of power. Exile united us. You turned away a species that adapts faster than any you've known. And in doing so, you gave us the time and space to become something greater. You declared us dangerous. And now, we are. Behind her, on a floating holomap, the Council's territorial reach shrank in real time. Red worlds turned gold, accord aligned. Blue fleets blinked out of formation as captains defected or surrendered. And then she delivered the final words. We are not here to destroy. We're here to replace you. The vote. The Council had two choices, war or dissolution. Only one would leave them intact. They chose dissolution. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even public. But in a private, final meeting, recorded for legacy only, the Council voted 19-2 in favor of surrendering governing authority to the Soul Accord. The Chief Arbiter, flickering with age and defeat, gave its last transmission. May the flame you carry burn not in vengeance, but in wisdom. And with that, 10,000 years of rule ended, not with a bang, but a broadcast. Aftermath, rebirth. Months passed. Worlds once forgotten were reconnected. The Terran language, once banned, became a lingua franca alongside dozens of others. New laws were forged, not by single species, but by collaborative courts. And at the heart of it all, Earth, once isolated, now the beacon, stood as a reminder. Not of war, but of what comes after survival. Admiral Rourke's final message. Years later, after stepping down as High Strategist of the Accord, Rourke recorded one final message for the archives. They feared what we could become without their control. We feared what we'd become if we didn't rise. In exile, we found each other. In unity, we found our purpose. We didn't take the galaxy to rule it. We took it, so no one else could ever cage it again. In the year 112 post-exile, a child was born aboard the Accord Citadel, a vast space station orbiting what was once Council space, now reformed into the Unity sector. Her name was Kayla Rourke Ventel, the granddaughter of Admiral Isha Rourke, and daughter of two former enemies. Her father was Terran, born in the exile colonies beyond Sagittarius Theta. Her mother, Veari, once a member of the Council's high caste, now a linguist helping reconcile alien dialects into the Accord's universal lexicon. Kayla's skin shimmered faintly in ultraviolet light, a trait inherited from her Veari lineage. But her eyes were unmistakably human, sharp, curious, questioning. She was not alone. Across the Unity sector, millions of children were being raised under a banner their parents had once feared or fought. Hybrids of biology, thought, and culture. A generation with no memory of the exile, only of what came after. These were the children of the Accord. Rebuilding isn't glorious, it's hard. The romanticism of overthrowing the Council faded fast. Ruling, it turned out, was more complicated than rebelling. Entire worlds needed rebuilding. Thousands of species long exploited, fragmented, or enslaved were now asking for autonomy, reparations, even justice. Disagreements flared. Not every alien trusted human leadership, despite the Accord's promise of equality. And not every human believed the war was over. Enter Commander Liss Marlowe. A war hero in the liberation of Heliest Prime, Commander Liss Marlowe was now head of Accord security operations. A second-generation exile born in deep space, she had little patience for bureaucracy. "Peace is good," she often said. "But it's not safe. Not yet." Her concern wasn't paranoia. In the shadows of former Council territories, remnant factions stirred. Some were warlords clinging to power. Others were former elites of the Council who had fled with vast resources, building secret enclaves, dreaming of return. Worse still, a new faction was forming in the outskirts of the Galactic Rim. Human, yes, but twisted. They called themselves the Purity Line. The Purity Line, a dangerous echo. Born from fringe human colonies that rejected alien integration, the Purity Line believed that exile had proven humanity's superiority and that the Accord had diluted it. They rejected hybrid offspring, mocked interspecies education, and labeled the Accord leadership as traitors to Earth's legacy. Their broadcasts were slick, violent, and increasingly popular among fringe worlds that felt left behind. Their message was simple. "We took the galaxy. Why are we sharing it?" Kayla's awakening. Kayla Rourke-Ventel was 12 when she first heard the Purity Line's message. It crackled through an encrypted channel while she worked on her school project aboard Citadel Station. At first, she didn't understand the words, only that they were angry. But then she heard her grandmother's name. "Isha Rourke led us into darkness, and now her blood leads us to extinction." Kayla froze. Her friends, a mix of Miri, Terran, and Drocker children, looked to her with wide eyes. Her first experience of hatred came not from the outside galaxy, but from a human voice. The Accord Youth Initiative. In response to rising extremism, the Accord accelerated its Youth Initiative, a program designed to foster unity through shared missions across species, cultures, and histories. Kayla, despite her age, was selected for the inaugural Unity Voyage, a 6-month journey aboard the starship Ilias, with one mission: to travel the former battle zones and collect first-person accounts of the war, both victories and regrets. Her companions included Tron, a Drocker pacifist whose great-uncle had fought against the humans. Misha, an aquatic Neri empath with the ability to echo memories through touch. Jonas Cade, a brash Earthborn tech prodigy and grandson of a Council collaborator. Really, an insectoid Kairashi who had never seen a non-hive being before the Accord. Their mission was part education, part healing. But it would become something else entirely. The Shattered World. Their third stop was Krynon 2, a planet once strip-mined by the Council and then bombarded in a scorched Earth retreat. Now, it was slowly being terraformed by Accord engineers. But something was wrong. Upon orbit, the Ilias picked up an unauthorized signal deep in the planet's southern hemisphere. Commander Liss Marlowe, monitoring the mission from Citadel HQ, hesitated. "Send a drone," she ordered. The drone vanished 10 seconds after descent. The children decide. Protocol demanded the ship wait for backup. But Kayla, studying the signal's pattern, recognized something. A pulse code, identical to the one used during the final battle of the Council War. One her grandmother had used in her final assault. Tron wanted to retreat. Jonas wanted to hack deeper. Kayla made a choice. They landed. What they found was not a trap, but a colony. Half-ruined buildings. A shattered tower with Accord markings scorched away. Children, malnourished but alive. Alien and human, mixed. A secret village, abandoned, forgotten, hidden in shame. They called it Vestra, and it had been founded by deserters from both sides. Veterans too tired to fight, too wounded to rebuild. Legacy isn't always noble. Kayla's team recorded hours of testimony. Some told of Council lies. Others told of human cruelty. One Vayari, old and with only one functioning lung, said softly. When peace came, no one knew what to do with monsters who no longer wanted to kill. They had hidden themselves. And then, recently, someone had tried to recruit them. We said no, one survivor whispered. Then your drone came. We feared you were with them. Kayla stared at the broken Accord monument, its flame sigil charred. Who tried to recruit you? She asked. The survivors' eyes dimmed. They wore black. Their patch said Earth Reborn. The Purity line had found them first. Return and reckoning. When the Ilios returned, it did not come quietly. Kayla's report shook the Accord Council. There were more colonies like Vestra, ghosts of a war the galaxy had tried to forget. Some feared reopening old wounds. Others, like Commander Marlowe, saw a greater danger. If we don't reach them, the Purity line will. Kayla stood before the assembly, her voice young, but her words old. You promised us unity. That means all of us, not just the easy parts. If we abandon the broken, we repeat the Council's mistake. And this time, the galaxy won't survive us again. The new Accord flame. In the years that followed, Kayla helped lead the Reconciliation Initiative, part diplomacy, part rescue, part truth commission. More hidden colonies were found. More pain uncovered. But with each one, the Accord grew stronger not by power, but by honesty. A new symbol was added to the Accord flame, a broken circle, representing not perfection, but growth. And the children of the Accord carried it forward, not with pride, but with purpose. The broadcast came in the middle of night cycle across the Unity sector. All screens flickered black, then lit with a sharp, white symbol, a stylized human skull surrounded by stars, the insignia of the Purity line. A man appeared. Mid-30s. Pale skin. Black eyes with no irises, likely augmented. His voice was cold, efficient, unmistakably human. I am Commander Reese Tellar, descendant of the Exodus fleet, speaker for the Trueborn, and inheritor of what was taken. The Accord has poisoned our legacy. Contaminated our blood. Broken our traditions under the lie of unity. He leaned forward. His gaze felt like it pierced through every screen. No more. The feed cut to static. 10 seconds later, 17 Accord satellites detonated in synchronized bursts. On 3 frontier worlds, infrastructure blackouts began. Water pumps failed. Comms went dark. Spaceports stopped responding. The war had begun. The Accord's first defeat. At Argani Station, once a former Council listening post turned Accord command hub, a squadron of Purity line ships arrived without warning. They didn't broadcast threats. They didn't fire first. Instead, they released anti-AI virus clouds, disabling the station's systems from the inside. Then they struck. Precision. Brutality. Silence. In less than 12 minutes, the station's 500 inhabitants were either dead or taken. The attackers left one message, carved into the metal walls of the command center. You abandoned your own. We are what remains. Who was Reese Tellar? At Accord Command, panic was not an option, but neither was ignorance. Commander Liz Marlowe called an emergency war council. Kayla Rourke-Ventel, now 17 and serving as a liaison to the Youth Initiative, attended as an observer. What the records revealed shocked everyone. Reese Tellar had once been a Terran child soldier born on an illegal mining colony cut off during the Council's fall. When the war ended, no aid reached his system for over a decade. By the time Accord scouts arrived, it was too late. Entire generations had been raised believing humanity had been abandoned again, not by the Council, but by the Accord itself. Tellar had survived. Trained. Fought. And disappeared. He re-emerged as a preacher, then a strategist, and finally a warlord. A divided response. The Accord was shaken. Some called for open war. Others wanted dialogue. Some of the older species, still unsure of humanity's leadership, suggested the Accord hand over control to a neutral coalition until the matter resolved. Human problems should not ignite a second galactic war, one Vayari delegate warned. Kayla spoke then, not as a soldier, not even as a Rourke, but as someone who had listened. You say they're human problems. But they're not. The Purity line has alien allies too angry, bitter, lost. We're all in this. The galaxy didn't fracture because of humans. It fractured because power forgot the broken. Silence followed. Then Commander Marlowe made a choice. We will not answer this threat with extermination. But we will face it. Operation Lighthouse. Dubbed Operation Lighthouse, the Accord deployed a multi-pronged strategy, not just military force, but information warfare, psychological outreach, and the most controversial piece, infiltration. A small, elite team would be sent into the outer systems not to destroy the Purity line, but to understand how deep it went and who still might be saved. Kayla volunteered. So did Jonas Cade. So did Tron. Misha and Riley remained at Citadel, coordinating comms and empathy support. Their mission: locate Fort Exodus, the rumored capital of the Purity line, and find out what Rhys Tellar truly wanted. Into the fracture zone. The team traveled in a disguised freighter, posing as refugee relief workers. It took weeks to cross the fracture zone, a stretch of lawless space littered with ruins from the Council Accord War. Everywhere they went, they saw signs. Stations where Accord aid never arrived. Colonies abandoned due to resource triage. Villages where unity was just a word on a broken screen. And they saw something worse. Hope, twisted into bitterness. One child, no older than 10, wore a Terran flight jacket with the words Earth First stitched in blood-red thread. Fort Exodus. They found it hidden inside a fractured moon, a whole city, underground, built in secrecy. Fort Exodus was not primitive. It was beautiful. Stark. Efficient. Clean. Jonas whispered, "This doesn't look like a terrorist base." It didn't. It looked like what the Accord could have been if it had chosen isolation over inclusion. Kayla stood in the Grand Hall, surrounded by murals. Not of humans alone, but of pure bloodlines, untainted histories. No hybrids. No Accord symbols. Rhys Tellar waited for her at the center. "I knew you'd come," he said. "You invited me with a slaughter," Kayla replied. "I invited you with a mirror." The debate. Tellar did not threaten her. He didn't imprison her. He walked with her, showed her the archives, stories of abandoned humans, of species assimilated without consent, of children torn from cultures in the name of unity. "You're not wrong," Kayla said quietly. He smiled. "Of course I'm not." The Accord forgot the cost of exile. They turned strength into compromise. "But you're wrong too," she added. "You took pain and made it permission to hate." Tellar's smile faded. "I offer order. Purpose. Identity. You offer fear dressed as belonging." That was when she saw it, behind his eyes, not madness, not cruelty, but certainty. The most dangerous kind. The escape. They were never meant to leave. Jonas triggered the emergency recall beacon when Kayla's comms went dead. Tehran created a diversion with an improvised EMP pulse, shutting down the compound's defense grid. Nisha's ship arrived on the edge of the system, silent and cloaked. Kayla escaped, but not before Tellar gave her a final warning. The Accord will fracture. You cannot save a galaxy from itself. When it falls, we'll still be here. Back to the flame. Kayla returned not with victory, but with truth. The Accord Council convened. Her report was distributed across every major world. And with it came her message. We are not losing to weapons. We are losing to forgotten stories. If we want peace, we must earn it again. Not through speeches. Through rebuilding. Through showing up. Through remembering the broken. The Inheritors rise. The Accord launched the Restoration Corps, a fleet not of warships, but builders, healers, translators, memory keepers. The Accord flame changed again, 3 layers now. The outer ring for unity. the inner ring for truth. And at the center, a broken star, still burning. Because every inheritor of this galaxy was broken in some way. And that's what made them whole. The stars were too quiet. At the edge of the Unity sector, a cord Deep Sky Array 14 went offline, no warning, no signal. A minute later, 7 more vanished from the network. Not disabled, erased. Then the silence broke. A fleet of dark, angular warships emerged from quantum foldspace. No transponder IDs. No negotiation. Each bore the same symbol, a human skull surrounded by stars. The purity line had arrived. The Siege of Unity. The first wave struck Chiron Spire, the Accord's eastern cultural capital. It was home to libraries, hybrid academies, and interspecies arts. They didn't attack infrastructure, they attacked symbols. Monuments were reduced to ash. Learning centers vaporized. A performance hall filled with child musicians was targeted mid-concert. No warning. Within hours, the fleet moved on to Serapis Gate, a key communications relay. The Accord was overwhelmed. They had trained for war, but not this kind. The Purity Line strategy wasn't to conquer. It was to humiliate. The Accord strikes back. Commander Liz Marlowe led the counteroffensive from the bridge of the Aegis Nova, a ship built with technology from 5 former enemy species. Alongside her, hybrid command staff, tactical AIs, even a Kairashi ambassador turned fleet strategist. Their strategy wasn't brute force. It was integration. And it worked. For every system the Purity Line took, the Accord took back too, not through destruction, but through liberation. They offered medical aid, reconnected exiles, and broadcast truth into fractured airwaves. Still, Tellar wasn't finished. The fall of Citadel Station. The heart of the Accord, Citadel Station, was the next target. It was no longer just a capital, it was a symbol of everything the Accord had built. When Tellar's fleet arrived, they did not announce themselves. They simply opened fire. The Citadel's outer defense grid flared with light. Shield matrices strained. The flame tower, the central monument, shattered under kinetic impact. Civilians evacuated. But Kayla Rourke-Ventel stayed behind. She made her way to the command core. "I have to face him," she told Marlowe. "He wants you dead," the commander warned. Kayla stared out the viewport, watching the Black Fleet close in. "He wants to be heard." The transmission. Then it happened. A message arrived. Not to the Council. Not to the military. To Kayla, directly. Tellar's voice, calm, distant, almost weary. "This is our final chapter, Rourke. You walk in the light of a lie. I walk in the memory of truth. Meet me at the ash wound, the place your grandmother broke the stars." She knew the place. A dead system. No planets. Just the remains of a council dreadnought shattered in humanity's last stand a century ago. Marlowe objected. "It's a trap." Kayla agreed. And still, she went. Ash wound system. The moment Kayla's ship entered orbit, she saw it, the remnant dreadnought, an ancient council warship, half-repaired, repurposed, and bristling with spiked modifications. Aboard it, Reese Tellar. She docked without an escort. Alone. The corridor was dark. Cold. Tellar waited in the command chamber, staring at a projection of the galaxy marked not with battle lines, but scars. He turned. No weapons. No guards. Just him. And her. The conversation. He gestured to the stars. "They forgot us. Left us to die in silence. You live in a dream, girl." Kayla nodded slowly. "And you live in a graveyard. You built your future from bones." He laughed, but it was bitter. "I was there when the Accord failed to send relief. I watched children starve while your ships protected important colonies. You preach unity, but you never knew what it cost to survive outside the flame." "I do now," Kayla said quietly. He blinked. She stepped closer. I saw Vestra. I've walked in the places your war built. I know what happened to you, Reese. I know you were left behind. But that doesn't make this right. He clenched his jaw. They need to remember. They will, she said. But not by burning what we've built. The choice. Teller's finger hovered above a control panel. A final command, a planet cracker buried in Citadel's core, activated remotely. He looked at her, eyes wet, wild with pain. One more light to go out. That's all it takes. Kayla didn't raise her weapon. Didn't activate her emergency beacon. She stepped forward and said, "If you believe you're the last voice of the forgotten, then let me listen." He froze. "You want to punish the galaxy," she said. "But I want to remember with you. Speak. And I swear every system, every child, every generation after will know." He let go. Tellar stood frozen for what felt like hours. Then he lowered his hand. He sank to his knees. "I didn't want to be a villain." Kayla sat beside him. "You weren't born one." She looked around the chamber, half grave, half monument. "You were just too broken to believe anything else could live." Aftermath. The warships withdrew. Tellar was taken into custody not for execution, but for testimony. His words, memories, and truths became part of the Accord archives. Not sanitized. Not rewritten. Preserved, as a warning and a wound. Citadel Station rebuilt the Flame Tower. This time, not in gold or glass, but in scrap metal from the ruins of Vestra, Arganes, and the Ash Wound. A reminder, unity was never perfect. It was earned, every day. The stars looked different now. Not because they had changed, but because of who was watching them. Kayla stood atop the Vestra Unity Monument, a spiraling tower of alloy and living wood. Around her, the city shimmered, rebuilt not just by humans, but by the very species that once exiled them. Above, the Accord banner rippled in solar wind. Not the Council's flag. Not humanity's old standard. But something new. Something they built together. A voice in the crowd. "Mom!" The voice was small, bright, familiar. Kayla turned and saw a girl, her daughter, darting up the platform steps, her hybrid braid fluttering, her fingers stained with ink and grease. In her hands, a worn holopad. "I finished my report on the Purity War," the girl said breathlessly. "I quoted both you and Reese Tellar. My teacher said it made her cry." Kayla smiled. "That's good. But remember, we don't tell stories to make people cry." Her daughter blinked. "Then why?" Kayla knelt. "To make sure they remember what it cost us not to care." The last council seat. In the new Accord Hall, a single chair remains untouched. A stone seat, old and cracked, inscribed simply, "Here once sat the ones we exiled. They returned not in vengeance, but with vision." It is never used. But it is never empty. Around it, every meeting opens with a reading. One voice, chosen by the youngest attendee, recites a passage from Kayla's own journals. "They tried to write us out of history. But history belongs to those who show up. Even when they're not welcome." Legacy beyond light. Humanity, once exiles, became something more. Not conquerors. Not martyrs. But binders, thread between old and new, between justice and grace. Their ships no longer bore skulls or vengeance. They bore names like Mercy's Edge, Remember Vestra, and Dawnfall Rising. Children born on hybrid worlds no longer asked who owned the galaxy. They asked, what can we build together next? The galaxy we chose. In the end, the galaxy didn't give humanity permission to return. It didn't need to. Because the truth was simple. They were always part of it. No council decree could erase that. No war could overwrite it. And no exile could ever outlast the truth of what they became. Not by bloodline. Not by conquest. but by choice. They were the galaxy's heart now. Flawed, fierce, unyielding, and deeply, irreversibly human.